Tell me when I'm live.
You are live.
All right, we are live today. Welcome back to Apex Inner Game podcast or Podclass. I read somewhere Rolo called it a Podclass, so I'm going to steal that from my friend Rolo Tomasi because that's kind of what this is. Usually we have talks and answer your questions rather than guests, although sometimes we will do guests. And we talk about topics related to inner game and mindsets, relationships and dating, and sex and sexual dynamics. And we are here to have higher level conversations so that you can actually affect change in your life. And so that's the whole purpose of this show, versus some of the other shows out there, which may be more geared towards lower level conversations that are designed to, although we'll entertain you here too, but a lot of those are designed for entertainment or just designed to get the views, the likes. It's like mainstream media news, right? When we ended up with a 24-hour news cycle, it became a fight for ratings, and that's kind of what YouTube is, really. It's a fight for ratings, and people tend to get attracted to things that distract them from their lives rather than things that will help them focus on their lives and do better. And so you'll see the millions of subscribers will go to a lot of mindless content, but that's not what we're here for. All right. So we're here to actually stimulate your mind and shift your paradigms, kind of open up your thoughts and ideas for how you think the world works, right? Particularly in the realm of relationships, dating, sex, and of course, performance and mindset and getting your crap in order. All right. And the topic for today is going to be cheating. Cheating is the number one reason or excuse, at least we could call it, that people do break up, I think, according to a number of statistics. It's a pressing issue. In the description of the video, if you want to cheat proof your relationship and learn how to set boundaries better, there's a link and you can click that and you'll get that free guide. All right. So if you want to get on my list to get that and get that free guide to be able to have better relationships, then that is for you. Okay. So we're going to talk about, though, not just, although our Glenn does awesome ads and they're pretty hilarious, and we are going to address some of the things that women use as excuses, for their cheating, where they basically blame you for their cheating behavior. We will talk about that. So that is part of the discussion. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today too is what you guys actually do in the framework that you have that does push a woman into the arms of another guy. All right. Whether it's cheating or whether it's just mate switching, which happens all the time, where she starts to lose, and it could happen in the dating phase before a commitment, where she loses interest in you. And the text backs are, becoming less and less and more spaced out, and she becomes interested in somebody else. And you just sort of watch her drift away and into another dude, right? And that happens a lot in the dating market, okay, to both men and women. But we're here focused kind of on you guys in the female behavior here. All right, so that is what happens. And a lot of times it is the behavior that you exhibit that causes or stimulates that. Now, this is not to say that people aren't responsible for their own behavior, okay? Obviously, if a girl cheats on you, that is her bad, right? That's her. She's the one breaking that, we'll say, moral barrier, right? And that's something that she needs to be responsible for. She cannot blame, as women tend to do who do this, blame you, even if you were a bad partner. She can't blame you for cheating, all right? she, it's her responsibility for her to set her own boundaries in a relationship if you're not being a good enough partner to her. And if you don't meet her boundaries, that she discards or leaves you first before just lining up another dude and mate switching. All right. But there is, so it's not to blame, you guys for it. But the thing of it is it's none of these behaviors exist in a vacuum. All right. There are a few girls out there who basically are stimulated or rewarded. Their reward centers are wired for cheating. This is usually a mix of some genetic factors as well as, it's not all genetics though. Very little of most of it, I think, is behavior, but there's some genetic factors that predisposes her to being that kind of a person. And then previous behavior has wired her reward system, all right, neurologically in her mind to feel that sense of reward, right, through her dopamine systems and through her reward systems when she, cucks another dude. And you can go check out my cucking videos, which are unfortunately my most popular videos on my channel. But where we talk about that psychology, okay, because these are things that people don't want to recognize, but are definitely in existence. But knowing the truth is better than ignoring the truth. You can still have really good, healthy relationships despite the savage nature that we have as men and women. We have a mammalian brain, that animal brain part of us, and that's where most of our mating drives exist. But we also have a human brain, and we can direct those mating drives in a positive direction. All right. So, and getting, healthy, good, long lasting, if we want them, long lasting relationships with people. So like we're not doomed, all right, to our instincts. We just need to know our instincts and be aware of them so we can steer them in the right way. And the thing that is not well understood, but I've said it in previous videos, I'm going to say it here again, just so you have a framework as we talk and go forward. The topic is that cheating is actually we'll say, natural default behavior. Or I say cheating, let's take the word cheating out of it. Let's just say mate switching. All right. So banging another person, okay, as a solution to certain, problems is a natural human behavior. All right. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it moral. But you have to understand that everybody is a cheater waiting to happen. Some more than others. Okay. So some are more likely to do it than others. But in the right set of conditions, anybody will mate switch. Anybody. Okay. For different motivations, different reasons, but anybody will do it because it's just a solution. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that doesn't make it right. But when you accept that red pills you, I guess, or brings you back to reality about cheating. It's not a thing that, where there are good girls and bad girls or good dudes and bad dudes, right? Where good girls would never cheat because it's just not in it for them to do it and blah, blah, blah. But the bad girls would, like that is not a realistic framework. That goes back to a psychological protective thing that us men do. We impose our, due to we'll say male driven insecurities, right? And male driven paradigms and feelings and needs of domination and stuff like that. We put our ideas onto women all the time. And in few shows that I have lined up too, we'll talk even more about that how the understanding we have, the mainstream understanding of like female sexual psychology, is completely wrong and driven by male paradigms and insecurities. And then women will sort of play and feed off of that in order to get what they want in the sexual marketplace. But reality is, women know their dark parts of their sexual selves, and if you've picked up My Secret Garden, or, going back, when was that written? 40 years ago or more, these there's these aspects of female sexual psychology, are there, and they're prevalent in every woman. And so instead of getting into this framework of, we'll say, slut shaming, right? And it's not just men, it's actually women that slut shame more than men do, ironically, because they use it as a means of competing with each other in the sexual marketplace. So if I can say that Becky's a slut and sleeps with everybody, I can make Amy can make herself feel better by saying Becky's a slut, and make herself appear more valuable to mates, when reality, maybe Becky's just hotter and has more options. You know what I mean? So like it's within female social dynamics that slut shaming was essentially created, and I don't want to say created, but perpetuated, and still is today. All right. And but we kind of want to step aside, and there's nothing, actually, I will say there's nothing wrong with having a sense of right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and having a sense of, hey, if Becky is running around sleeping with a bunch of dudes and having what she feels is inconsequential sex, she is lining herself up to not be a good long-term partner for somebody. She is lining herself up to have more of a propensity to cheat, less of a chance for satisfaction as a long-term mate, so on and so forth. So there is a realness to that. It's not about shame just for the sake of shaming. It's called, actions have consequences. You know what I mean? It's no different than if, Bobby is a heroin addict. Well, there's certain things about being addicted to heroin that makes Bobby not a good friend and not a good partner. And even if he gets that addiction in order, there's a certain set of baggage that will come with that, right? Doesn't make Bobby a bad person or a good person because of it. It's not about judging Bobby and saying that Bobby is, shame him for his drug addiction, but it's a reality, right? It's a reality. And so, if somebody is having, promiscuous and savage sexual behavior as a woman, like that's going to cause red flags and problems for her down the road, or in other situations, particularly committed relationships. So these are reality. It's not, it's not where I'm not leaning towards a feminist ideology here, where, this idea of pointing out any reality or fault or problem in a behavior is somehow shaming. It's not. We can point out realities and faults in behaviors without, doing it for the sake of just trying to make someone else look bad, right? And so that's the whole thing. But we want to step away from that idea of, well, there's this slutty stuff and that's bad girl behavior, and then there's good girls, and you want to marry or get with a good girl. And a lot of you guys listening right now, a lot of you guys who, especially you new guys, you have that paradigm, because I hear it all the time. You're worried about notch counts because you want to find a good woman, right? Well, there isn't. Who is this good woman you speak of? Because they all have a propensity to do the thing that you're afraid of, which is mate switching and cheating. They all have that propensity. Every single one of every single girl you run into, every single female you've run into, every single male you've run into. So that's the myth we want to dispel right away in order to have this conversation, that there are really no good or bad in terms of our instincts. What makes us good or bad is our choices, right? In our mental frameworks, in our human brain, in our behaviors, and how we treat others. That's what makes us, we could say good or bad in a moral sense, not whether or not our instincts drive us to certain things, because in different circumstances, every single girl out there is driven to bang another dude outside of the confines of the relationship, or set up a mate switch and then move on to shifting mates. All right. And so that's a reality. Okay. The reasons why, like the primary reason why a woman might cheat on you is really up for debate among the evolutionary psychologists. I would say it's not. Sometimes even the academics get caught in binary black and white thinking. I don't think it's a either or drive. I think cheating is a natural solution to problems, not a good solution, obviously, when it comes to success, long-term success in relationships, but it is a natural one that people defer to in a number of different scenarios. I don't think it's one drive or one scenario or primary thing that drives the behavior, which is what a lot of the evolutionary psychologists are looking for as a primary driver for the behavior. I don't think they're going to find this, and that's why it's up for debate, because I don't think they're going to find that. The two most predominant models are we could call it the alpha bucks, or alpha fucks beta bucks, right? That scenario, which is strategic pluralism. That's one scenario, which is that women are trying to have the genetic, get their sexual desires met with a genetic alpha, and then they're settling with a guy who will take care of them. They want a guy who achieves both of those ends, but in absence of having that guy, they defer to mate switching or cheating behavior, where they're settled in with a beta guy, and then they're having sex on the side with a breeder or an alpha type. And that is a model that I think does fit a lot of scenarios. I don't think it fits every scenario or is the only factor when it comes to mate switching behavior. I think that, another one that more than the David Buss side of it, of the argument, is a belief in it's just mate switching, and setting up the mate switch is the reason for cheating or the reason for stepping out, which means, it's more of instead of this dynamic of this polyamorous dynamic of alpha, alpha genetic alpha for sex, betas to take care of her. Her motivation is really she's in a relationship. The relationship isn't working out, so she wants to set up the next relationship. And that's where mate switching, becomes the thing. I think that it's either or, right? I think it's both things play a role. I think women mate switch a lot. Women set up the next guy. Women have orbiters. They don't always know or are consciously aware that they're doing it. And if they're made conscious of it, they will rationalize oftentimes how that should be okay and that's fine. And because they're not actually cheating, right? So if they're keeping a guy around in their orbit that they would have sex with isn't the same as having sex with them or whatever. So they think that that's okay. Reality is it's not really okay, because they're opening up the door of the option to go run off with somebody else as a solution to a problem instead of solving problems within the relationship. You see, so as a general point of advice for you guys and gals and guys who are holding frame in your relationships, you need to cut off your options if for long-term LTR options. In other words, so when I say cut off your options, it's okay to know that you're sexually desirable by other people. I think that that's actually a healthy thing and a healthy framework. I think women need their primary motivator for their sexual value needs to be their partner, who they see as their contextual alpha. I think that that's for success in a relationship and to maintain sexual desire. That's where her head needs to be at. But to get social proof when she's feeling or a bit unsure, okay, that's nothing wrong with knowing you're attractive. Now, for women, that can often, it's not about seeking male attention, but it suggests she's going to get male attention as a consequence of her attractiveness. If there's any attention she should be seeking outside of a relationship, it would be from females. Girlfriends telling her she looks good, looks pretty, or that looks cool or nice or whatever, right? I think that's a healthy framework, because that makes for a girl who is not insecure. And I'll get into that point later on, why insecurity in your woman is a problem, okay, when it comes to cheating, and it can point her in that direction. And so knowing that she's attractive in the sexual marketplace, I think, is a good thing, as long as she thinks that she's being attractive for you as her contextual alpha and her guy, and you are the authority on it. In other words, she's not going to do something with her hair, for example, that you don't like. You know what I mean? And if she is, then her framework is off, and that needs to be addressed. Like, she wants to do something with her hair, and her man thinks that that's not an attractive option, and he expresses that in the right way. Well, she can't, if she's like, well, I'm going to do it anyways, I'm going to do it for me. Well, you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for some sort of attention, or some sort of want for a feeling of attention or attractiveness outside of outside of your relationship. Doesn't mean other guys necessarily, but I shouldn't say that. It does mean other guys, but it doesn't mean a specific other guy. Like, she's trying to change your hair for, Kevin from sales or whatever, who likes her shorter hair or her hair coloring. It's not necessarily that, but it's in general, she wants better attention from the general marketplace, right? And other women, might be like, oh, you'd look cute with this or whatever, or her friends are doing it, or you know what I mean? So she wants that. But her, for a good framework in a relationship, she should be deferring to things about her appearance to the guy that she's with. I mean, that's the person who she's supposed to be sexually attractive for primarily, and so that's a problem if that's not there. But if she's doing things outside of that. But I mean, being attractive though to the marketplace isn't a bad thing. And same with you guys, like being attractive to other women isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? Those you guys who run more or less soft harems, kind of a polygamous environment where you have threesomes, or you whatever, there's occasional other girls. Having another girl in the picture for, let's say, a threesome is not the same as having another girl for a long-term relationship. You see what I mean? And so if you have, an LTR, and you want that to be successful, and you want her to, and she wants it to be successful, opening up the other doors for options of other LTRs is not a good, healthy framework for your primary relationship. If she's got her, good friend, Steve, or her ex, that she keeps around as a friend, but really it's keeping him around as an option to mate switch to, what that does is it makes her investment for problem solving and for being attractive to her partner less, right? And if that investment's less, then the effort's not going to be there. The effort to complement your life isn't going to be there. The sexual effort's not going to be there. The effort to want to get her sexual needs met within the relationship's not going to be there. She'll, vibrate herself, watch porn, step outside, whatever. Like, there's all kinds of things she'll do because she's got guy number 2 or guy number 3 as an orbiter. So the mate switching model for cheating is one that's pretty prevalent. Again, I think that there are all sorts of reasons why women cheat. It's not just even that. It's not just mate switching. I think that's putting male, because sometimes women just want to get banged by a random person or a loser, and they don't want a relationship. When guys think that their primary mode or reason for cheating is to be a good girl and be in another relationship, that is once again a male, kind of a male insecurity driven idea, right? Not wanting to face the savage fact that sometimes women just want to get laid and they don't care, you know? And there is no, and good girls sometimes just want that. And that's just the reality of it. And that's all of them. It's not just not your little angel at home, or, whoever you think is on a pedestal isn't any different. There's a part of her that would want that or fantasize about that. It's just the reasons, like the conditions for her to get there might be different than you as a guy. You know what I mean? And so mate switching as the primary driver for cheating, I don't think that's an accurate model, but as the primary driver, I think that it's definitely a reason though women do it. I think that the strategic pluralism dynamic is another reason. I think cucking is another reason in cuck psychology. And that stems from more wanting revenge or wanting to get back or getting off on degrading her partner. Revenge cheating, which is kind of an element of the cucking aspect. I mean, there's a number of reasons why women do it. And because again, it's a natural adaptation to problems, not a good adaptation, right? I mean, a natural adaptation to a problem is I beat somebody to death when they make me angry. But that doesn't mean I go do that just because I have a gorilla part of my brain that says that sounds like a good idea right now. That's the kinds of things that end you up in prison, right? Or that's the kinds of thing that end you up having a lot of regret later for responding to your animal brain, right? Well, same with cheating. Okay, so just because something is a natural adaptation, that doesn't mean you just run off and do it. But I think we need to accept that that is what it is and stop, idealizing it like it's some anomaly or it's some sort of special thing that only happens out there with certain people and it doesn't happen to me. Okay, that's bullshit. And that's how you guys get yourself in trouble. And that thought process is what creates a lot of anxiety and insecurities in you guys. Because instead of accepting the fact that your girl has an animal brain that will drive her to do certain things, if she were to allow it, and that has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with your alphaness, has nothing to do with your dick size, has nothing to do with how tall you are, has nothing to do with, how good you are in bed, has nothing, the thought that this driver might exist. We're not talking actioning it now. We're just talking about it existing, that's just because she's a human being. And it has nothing to do with you. And so you guys make it all about you when you're in a sexual framework with a girl, and that has to do with your own existential fears and threats of, paternity risk. That's where that comes from. That's where jealousy comes from. All right. And so this fear you have, that's your monkey brain having a need to pedestalize this girl you're with and think she's different than the other girls, because that makes you feel safer in your relationship versus facing the fact that the only thing that makes you safe in your relationships is your skill, your frame, and your boundaries. Okay. And then on her end of it, her behaviors and her, morality and her behaviorally conditioned tendencies. All right. The drives themselves are going to push into savage areas if she in certain circumstances, you know what I mean? And even if she thinks you're the best guy on earth and she thinks you're the most alpha guy in her life, that, when she's feeling uncertain or angry or whatever, women cheat on that guy. All right. It's a big mistake to think that they don't. And that's all safe world shit. That's all safe world theory. And a lot of you red pill guys have your own safe world theories based on red pill ideology, and you're not willing to face that fact that that's not keeping you safe either. And in fact, as a mindset thing, this is where sharpening your mind and your inner game is so important, because having an ability to operate in chaos, have an ability to operate with no safety, okay, that's external outside of what you can create for yourself, that is the key to success and the key to happiness and emotional self-control and success in your relationships as well as other areas of your lives. All right. Your safe world theories are the ones that are creating more anxiety for you. And the reason why is because you have this safe world paradigm. And then as soon as your girl doesn't act in a way that matches the pedestal or just demonstrates even in a subtle way that she has a monkey brain too. All right. As soon as she acts like that, you guys lose your shit. You get freaked out. You get, what's that mean? What's she going to do now? She's going to do something. She's going to cheat on me. Like, because she wasn't who I thought she was. You know what I mean? But she wasn't who you thought she was. If she was not who you thought she was, then that means that you had a fantasy in your brain about this girl, not a reality. You didn't see her for who she was. That's a you problem. All right. I know women can, of course, be deceptive, but a lot of times it's not deception. It's just her being who she wants to be. And who she wants, she's not going to try to be the worst version of herself. Neither are you. You're going to try to be the best version of yourself. And you're going to present that as much as you can in the beginning of a relationship. That's normal. That's not being deceptive, right? And so for you to fill in the blanks of what you don't see on a girl with fantasy, right? And with imaginary and ideological thinking, that's a you problem. That's a thing that you do, all right? And it's a lack of inner game that causes you to do that. It's because you're worried, you don't want to get attached and then be hurt, like. Yeah, so it's like understanding that, when you have realities and you understand realities and you are mentally strong about those realities, then you can really begin to have good relationships with women in the dating market as well as everywhere else. You're not trying to pedestalize them and put them someplace where they're not. All right. And so what'll happen is a lot of times is the framework of and those fears and insecurities step in. And that's where you guys will start to do things that will create the identity and the paradigm for cheating that happened. All right. Now, again, some girls, I look at it like this. Everybody, every girl, every guy is, all of them has a propensity to cheat under the circumstances that are the right combination of events and situations that she would be susceptible. If you think you're not, then you're susceptible even more. Why? Because you're not aware now. If your girl thinks I would never do that, that's a good thing, but that could also be a bad thing, right? Because if she thinks she can put herself in situations where cheating could happen and then defer to, well, I'm not like that, I would never do that, that's not going to be good, right? Because under the right set of circumstances, anybody might do that. You know what I mean? She's got to have the mindset, I would never do that because I'm not going to put I'm not going to put I don't have a desire to put myself in situations that would make me uncomfortable and make me feel like I have to compromise my values, right? That's a better framework, not I would never do that. So I'm going to go out on a girls' weekend where everybody's banging everybody. And I'll be the only girl who doesn't do that. Like, are you going to be, like, how about I don't put myself in circumstances where I would, even have to look or have the appearance of being a cheater. See, when a girl has a solid identity of not being a cheater, she would be embarrassed about putting herself in circumstances that would give the appearance of impropriety. All right. In other words, she's not going to go hang out in a bedroom at a house party with a guy while her girlfriends are, banging a couple other guys in other rooms. And then a small group is out on the patio smoking weed, for example. And we're just talking. We're just in the room talking, She's not going to go, after an event or let's say, a funeral or a wedding or something. She's not there with her boyfriend for some reason. And she meets a guy or an old friend, and then they go off together, and they go hang out in his hotel room. Like, she's not going to go do that if she's got the right mindset to not cheat. Because somebody who has the right a mindset of cheating is not in my identity, I would be embarrassed about it if I were to do that. She won't put herself in a situation where other people would think that something is going on, because that would be embarrassing to her, right? Remember, guys, like, women are very motivated by social appearances. And even when girls try to say, because they're trying to be like men when they say it, I don't care what anybody thinks, they're full of shit. They all care about what people think. And the only reason why they say that is because they say they don't care is because they care. They're trying to act like they don't care so they're not, further embarrassed by some behavior they're doing. Or they're trying to force acceptance of something that they're doing, right? So women are very driven by the social environment. So a woman who is okay with the appearance of impropriety, like going to meet out with a guy and hang out with a guy like they're on a date, even if it's not a date, and even if it's just a friend, she doesn't want to do that because she doesn't want to make it look like she could be cheating, right? That's the thing you need to understand about female psychology. If she has the identity of someone who wouldn't cheat on you, and she's holding on to that identity in a strong way, which is a good thing, right? That is a layer of protection against cheating on her relationships. She doesn't want to be that girl. She doesn't want to be that girl who's texting other dudes outside of her relationship, right? Well, she doesn't want to be that girl who's seen with some other guy, or, goes off with another guy and all of her friends assume that she's out banging that guy or that she wants to bang him, knowing she has a boyfriend, right? Even if her other friends are like cheaters, she might want to be better than her friends. And so how is she going to be seen as better than her friends if she is off, hanging out one-on-one with some dude while, and breaking away and isolating from the group, right? Like, she's not going to want to do that on vacation, let's say, meeting up with some guy. Like, she's not going to want that appearance if she's in the identity of not cheating. So that's an important thing. So a girl who is okay with having that appearance and then wants to shame and justify everybody else for thinking what exactly people would think in that situation, that's not a good paradigm or frame for your relationship. That's a boundary you need to have as men, because the appearance of impropriety creates impropriety, right? The appearance of doing something bad, will create the situation where they will do something bad. But of course, there's lines in that, right? Of course, where is the line, right? But I would say isolating yourself with other dudes or having, text exchanges that are inappropriate with other dudes would be where that line should be. Okay. So now you understand that, like, sort of a general framework of cheating, and understanding that, like, again, a girl who has it in her identity to not do it isn't going to put herself in situations. If she's putting herself in situations and saying, well, I can put myself in these situations because I would never do it, she's only rationalizing and justifying her cheating behavior. All right. And she may not be aware or, understanding that that's what she's doing, but that is in fact what she's doing. And she is setting herself up and her relationship up for failure, because how the social environment responds does affect your behavior and how you see yourself. And it's especially true with a woman. All right. So like when she goes out on that date with her friend, all right, and it looks bad. Well, the world will treat her like she is a cheater, like she wants this guy's dick, like she wants to have sex with him. The world will treat her that way. And when the world treats her that way, it's like the Stanford prison experiment. You know, we are affected by how other people treat us. So when she puts out, hey, I might be cheating, the world then reflects saying, yeah, you're probably cheating. Then she gets in the mindset and the identity of being the person who would cheat. And that's where it starts. You know, psychologically, that's where it begins. And then from there, she doesn't realize it, but she allows more and more boundaries to be crossed, rationalizing it the whole entire way, of course, until it gets to that point where it flips and there's no more rationalization and she's outright doing it and then giving excuses for it. But she'll rationalize and even believe she's not doing anything wrong. But the reality is she is putting out the appearance of being a cheater. People are responding to her as if she's that person, and then she is acting in that identity. And it might not even be cheater per se. It could be just single girl. In other words, she's acting like a single girl while everyone treats her like she's a single girl. And now she starts doing single girl shit, which ends up putting her into the, inappropriate exchanges with other men. Right. So instead of acting like a girl who has a boyfriend or has a husband or whatever, she's acting like a single girl. Then she gets treated as such. And then down the line, she finds herself crossing lines, doing shit. You know what I mean? And then being embarrassed about it later. And it may go all the way to sex, or it may just be, you know what I mean, embarrassing line crossing things. But the more lines that are crossed, the more into that paradigm she's being treated single. She acts single. They play across each other. She's contextually single at that point, even though her boyfriend thinks she's in a commitment. And so this is the problem. You see how it plays off of the social environment. This is where these things happen. And you guys do things sometimes to create that, right? To create that scenario. And let me tell you, most girls don't intend to bang another guy on their boyfriends, but they do it. So why? And they do it in high percentages. It's a lot of women that do it. So it's not, you have to ask yourself, how does this even happen? Right? Why, how, what, and that is how. All right. So, but if she is putting out that she's somebody with, a guy at home, then the world will respond to her like that. Even if guys are trying to sleep with her, they're responding to her as if she is somebody who has a boyfriend who they're trying to sleep with versus a girl who's single. You see what I mean? And there is a difference, right? And she's less likely to, entertain advances from a guy who knows she has a boyfriend because she acts like it and he's trying to get around it, versus she acts single, so he treats her like she's single. That puts her in an entirely different framework, right? And so let's talk about now what it is that you guys do, some of the things you guys do that puts her in a framework for cheating to begin with. All right. We'll start off with possessiveness, because that seems to be a problem in, like, I would say Manosphere, Redpill circles, is you guys who are like too possessive. Because you get a taste, at least, of some reality. Like, that women cheat. And when I say that, I mean their monkey brain will drive them to do that in the wrong circumstance. Just, no different than men, right? The difference is the motivations, but the act of mate switching is still the act of mate switching. So you guys, break through a little bit of your, some of you, well, not all of you, break through a little bit of that Madonna whore complex rationalization that you do to shield yourself from your existential fears. You recognize, okay, women are out to do this sometimes. And so you think the only thing to do to prevent that then is to have draconian control of your girl. And that's driven by your own insecurity. So here's the problem with that. It's not, you aren't setting boundaries from a framework of a confident man who knows he is her best. And if she doesn't recognize it or think so, then he'll, find somebody else, right? That's a her problem, not a his problem, right? If I'm the best this girl could want, because I work at that every single day. And I know that that's where we're at. And if she thinks she can do better, she can go somewhere else, right? And here are my boundaries. But I'm assuming, based on the fact that I selected this girl and based on what I know about her, because I took my time before we got into this relationship, I'm going to go based on the assumption that she is going to be a good girl who will maintain her commitment. That despite some of the drives she might have, she is not going to want to cheat on me. And though she may make mistakes occasionally when it comes to appearance of impropriety, which then we'll talk about those boundaries, she's not looking to mate switch. Like, she's not looking to create that opportunity for herself. I'm going to assume that she's, a girl who's capable of having commitment. But here are my boundaries, right? That would be the way to sort of approach that, the mental framework. In other words, assume that she'll be a good girl until she's not a good girl, but still set your boundaries, right? Because a good girl is not going to cross your boundaries. A good girl might accidentally, and I know I'm saying good girl now, and I said that none of them are good girls, but just bear with me. All right. So she's choosing to be in the identity of being a good girl, right? And you're going to assume that that'll be the identity she chooses in order to be with you, because that's your boundaries and that's your conditions. And you are only there to make certain conditions or boundaries clear to her when you think they might be unclear, or you're looking at behaviors that seem to be crossing things, but you're not approaching those things from a state of anger, being upset, or, insecurity or high anxiety, or thinking like, oh, she did this, she must be trying to fuck around on me. You know what I mean? You're going to have a strong identity about it, and you're going to instill an identity of ownership onto her. In other words, you're my girl. You choose to be my girl. So you're my girl. You're mine. You're not anybody else's. So you're not going to go off and act like that. That's not what you want to do. I trust that you're not going to go do that. I trust that's not your intention. So you actually start off from an identity of trust, but with boundaries. Many of you guys, I would probably say most of you guys, don't do that. When a boundary is crossed, secretly you had a covert contract in your head. You thought she was a special girl who would never do a boundary crossing. You're not looking at it like she's doing it because she's, maybe not aware that that's, what that she's creating a problem for herself. And maybe it's just, there's other reasons why they have nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with her being a good girl or a bad girl. Instead of recognizing that, you guys have a good girl fallacy. Not when I say good girl fallacy, it's the presumption that she's inherently a good girl versus, presuming that she is going to choose to be a good girl. So that's the difference, is choice versus inherent. And so you guys are coming from the idea, which is a fallacy, that she is inherently good somehow, and that, but she's not inherently bad either. Okay. She's just a person. All right. With a monkey brain and with flaws. But you guys are thinking that your little girl, whether you realize you're consciously thinking this or not, you're thinking that she is, she's, this a presumption that she's a good girl. And then when she does something or makes you question that, then you sort of freak out, and then that comes off as weak and insecure, right? And that comes off as sometimes in controlling behavior. And so what'll happen is, whether that happened in a relationship several relationships ago, and now you just behave with, possessive behavior all the time now with all your girls, or whether it happens in the relationship you're in. A girl does something that triggers in you that she might not be the good girl fallacy, meaning inherently this good person. So then you flip into, I have to control this. And so your need to control means what happens is you start treating her like she is a cheater. You treat her like she is not going to choose, to be faithful to you. You're treating her like she's not going to choose you over the sexual marketplace unless you create and enforce these boundaries. All right. So that's the paradigm you guys have. And there's a difference. And if you don't understand the subtle differences, ask some damn questions in the chat. All right. Because some of you won't get this. And it's because you need more work. All right. But there's a difference, and throw in a super while you're at it so that the algorithms will maybe help me with my videos. But yeah, so you guys, there's a subtle difference. Treating her like I'm going to trust her to make the right choice. And then if she doesn't, I'll be disappointed and I'll handle that disappointment. I'll handle her. Whether that means a breakup or not, whatever that means, I will handle the consequences and enforce those consequences. And those consequences are hers to deal with, right? That's the framework that you should have. But instead of having that, you are assuming that without me enforcing these boundaries, she will run off and bang someone else. When you make that assumption, what are you doing? Let's go back to that Stanford prison experiment. Okay. Let's say you've done everything right and you're the most influential opinion in her life as her man, as you should be. So as her most influential opinion on her life and on who she is and her identity, as her contextual alpha, let's say, you are saying to her through your actions and how you enforce your boundaries that you are someone who will bang other dudes if I don't have control over you like this. When you present that framework to a girl, what do you think that does? She becomes and is in the identity now of being a cheater. She is in the identity of the person who would run off on you. And so now all of those like subtle mammalian drives that exists independent of you that would push her into doing some shit with someone else and breaking her boundaries, all of those subtle things that existed already, instead of her getting into the identity of I'm not that person, so here are his boundaries and I'm going to be a good girl because I'm not that dumb bitch who runs off and cheats. Instead of jumping into that identity because you treat her as if she is going to make the choice, right, to be a good girl. Instead of doing that which would cause her to ignore and redirect those mammalian drives right back onto your dick and not on somebody else's. Instead of doing that, you're treating her like she's going to cheat anyway if I don't have these boundaries and if I don't enforce these things. And you're expressing that to her in the way that you're talking about it, sometimes in the way that you talk about her. If she does do something that she's unaware of that, gives an appearance of impropriety, you freak out and you treat her like she's a cheater. What that does is that pushes her into, that makes her more aware now of all of those mammalian drives that already existed. And it magnifies those drives for her, like sleeping with random dirtbag, or breaking, having a text exchange with an ex, or doing these little things that her mammalian brain would push her towards. She becomes more susceptible to doing those things now, because she believes, even if she is fighting against it and trying to convince you and tell you otherwise, deep down inside, it's like she believes that maybe she is this cheater, because those thoughts exist, those drives exist. And so she is now assuming, well, shit, these exist. My guy's telling, he knows they exist. He's telling me I'm a piece of crap because I did this and I did that, and, whatever, because I, looked at a guy a certain way, or I, was, acted, whatever, something, I didn't text him back quick enough, so I must be cheating. But, of course he's treating me like that because I have these other I have these secret thoughts and ideas that are driven by my mammalian brain. And so what happens is it just magnifies those. It makes her more likely to act on those, because then as you keep treating her like that, and as she keeps, at first she'll fight against it and say, no, that's not me, I would never do that, this and that. And then you, instead of being rewarded for her behavior of being a good girl, she's being penalized, because the more that she, tries to be good and tries to tell you otherwise, the more you treat her like she is going to cheat if you're not careful enough and all of this. And so she ends up getting penalized. So behaviorally, she's getting penalized for being a good girl. From an identity, a psychological identity perspective, she has her most influential force treating her like she is going to go cheat. So what happens is she finds herself where girls find themselves all the time when it comes to sex, which is a feeling of drive towards what is shameful. All right. So women have an inherent shame that follows their sexual drives. Okay. It just comes with the territory, and they're balancing that. Shame is part of the safety mechanism. All right. So women are always women have a much higher consequence for sex than men. That's an evolutionary thing. And so that's where shame over sexual deviancy comes from. There's a drive towards some deviancy, and then there's a little sense of shame that comes with that. That little sense or feeling of shame that girls are always fighting against, whether they're doing it on a big scale politically and screaming and yelling, don't slut shame us, whatever, or whether it's just in a small sense of, being a little embarrassed about something. That sense of shame is an evolutionary adaptation. It causes her to protect herself, right? So like, you're putting her in a place where she'll start to notice and focus more on these tendencies to want to step outside of the relationship and to want to cheat, or to want to sleep with this random guy, or want to do this random thing. And then that sense of shame will be there too, because you're shaming her. But with that sense of shame comes more of an attraction to the activity. And for a lot of girls, it becomes now a real fight, a real struggle to not fall to her mammalian drives and actually cheat on you. It becomes a real struggle for her. That struggle that didn't need to exist, but that you created in the frame of the relationship by treating her like she is going to inherently make a bad choice. All right. Because you're offended or upset or insecure about that mammalian brain that has drives that are independent of you. All right. And some of those drives don't fit the relationship. So that's a lengthy explanation. But if you paid attention, you'll fucking get it. And you'll understand why, from a game perspective, I don't recommend some of these draconian, chewing her out for boundary crossing kind of behavior. Because that kind of behavior actually pushes her into doing the behavior more. for so many different reasons, but I gave it just, that was an in-depth analysis of kind of the main reasons. But there's the issue of feeling angry and resentful towards you for the shame that she feels and wanting to get revenge off of that. And that's where she'll mate switch. You know what I mean? She might not cheat on you, but this is where you'll run into. She's being blamed for cheating all the time. And then she just breaks up with you. Then she sleeps with the guy within like 24 hours. Maybe it's somebody you know or somebody you were worried about. And then she goes, well, see, you were always, blaming me for it. So what, who cares? And I still didn't cheat on you. I broke up with you, And so like she'll do things just to piss you off. That's where revenge cheating comes from. Or she'll do things just to have power over you because she feels powerless and angry because of the shame she feels for how you're treating her. You see? And so that's a inner deep drive. And look, a lot of you guys will sit here and go, oh, I don't care. She shouldn't do it anyway, whatever. Hey, man, I don't, fucking then don't worry about understanding this shit and then just keep getting cheated on or keep being a douchebag in your relationships and having them fail on you. Like, I don't care. That's up to you. You know what I mean? But if you want to understand the deeper aspects of human psychology and drivers and why people do what they do, you have to understand that independent of your own ego and your own bullshit so that you know what to do with it. Like when you understand this dynamic of what I'm talking about, now you can tailor your game and your relationship game to use this to your advantage. All right. Rather than to your disadvantage. Okay. So when I know that as the most dominant force in my girl's life, and you guys who are in relationships should know that too. And you guys who are just dating a girl, but she really, really likes you, you're a dominant force here, right? It's starting. That's the beginning of that. You can instill, and this is where hypnotic language comes to play. And in like my mastermind group, I can train you guys how to do that. You instill the identity. So if you don't want your girl to be a cheater, you instill that identity in her. Now, that doesn't mean you just don't have any boundaries. Like, go ahead and go on dates with the guy who wants to bang you and your ex, and that go lie naked in your ex's house. I know you won't cheat because I'm arrogant and I instilled that identity. Like, I'm not saying that. Okay. You still, the identity is also not being the person who would appear to be a cheater. All right. The appearance of impropriety, that's part of the identity. If she's doing cheating things and then just saying, but I wouldn't do it, like that's not good enough. All right. That's not going to work. But when you say, I know you're my girl, I know you're going to be a good girl, I trust you. But you still expect, of course, not to have the appearance of impropriety. You still expect her to make the right choices. And if she is asking you if she can make a wrong choice, then you are telling her, no, that is a wrong choice. And if you're looking for my permission to make a wrong choice, I'm not going to give you that permission, but I'm going to tell you it's a boundary. And here's why that's a boundary, why you're not going to do that. Okay. And so, and when you guys are executing that game, it's not just about, don't make it about, I don't want you going out with that guy because I know that then you'll hit it off with him and then boundaries will be crossed and then you're going to want to sleep with him. Like, that could happen, but that's not really what it is. What it is I don't want you to embarrass yourself by being out with a guy and making it look like you're on a date and acting like you're single when you're not single, because that's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be embarrassing to you. It's going to be embarrassing to me. All right. If there's a guy that wants to hang out, he can hang out with us. If he's not willing to be my friend, then he's not your friend either. Or if there's guys in a group you're hanging out and you're not being isolated on some date or something, that's fine too. But you should be interested in not looking like the kind of girl who cheats on her boyfriend. I don't want my girlfriend to look like that kind of girl. All right. And and that's what you should be instilling. You should be instilling the appearance of impropriety. And then girls do understand that. And if they act like they don't, they're bullshitting themselves and you. Because go ahead, if she is acting like she doesn't care what other people think, just embarrass her in public then. Just do that intentionally one time. Just go when you're out somewhere, do something that would embarrass her without fully embarrassing yourself in the process. Then go what? You don't care about what other people think. All right. Or even just suggest in a Luca conversation. So let's say we were to go out and I were to do this thing that would just embarrass the shit out of you. That'd be okay then, right? Well, no, it wouldn't be. Of course it wouldn't be, because you do care about what other people think, and you should. All right. As my girl and as you're representing me, I don't want to do things that would embarrass you and embarrass myself and make us look bad to other people. I don't want you to do the same thing either. You don't want to do the same thing either. So don't tell me that you don't care about what other people think, and that's why you should be able to go out with and hang out with and sit on his desk with your short skirt, Steve from accounting, you know what I mean? Or Kevin from sales. Like, don't act like you don't care, because you're not going to do anything wrong, because you care. We all care. And so what you need to do is not be doing those things. And if you think that that's okay, then you need to be single, and that's the conversation. But you shouldn't even have to have that conversation, quite frankly. That's more of a dating conversation. That's not a relationship one. If you're having that in a relationship, you have fucked up. All right. You fucked that framework up before you got into the relationship, which happens, it happens. So whatever, but you should not have to tell your girl not. I was being a little facetious about sitting on his desk with a short skirt and all that, but but a lot of times girls will rationalize that, well, they should be able to have this orbiter friend around, and that they're offended if anyone treats her like she's a slut for it. No, you're acting like you might be a slut. So that is actually you giving the wrong impression. And you need to care about that. All right. And that's what you want to focus on from a game perspective to prevent your girl from cheating. Give her this assumption that she's going to be truthful, unless, of course, she's actually like doing crazy shit to cheat on you. That's obviously, you're going to call it like it is, right? But we're not talking that. We're talking about doing things that lead up to cheating, right? And her thinking she should be able to do it because she's not that person. Instead of arguing with her and calling her a slut and a cheater, and I know you're going to just try to bang him, or what if he does, and acting like she's going to just bang this guy, which will push her into the behavior more. Go with the assumption that you're the best that she can do. All right. That's the first part of the frame, is that she's the best she can do. If she does do some shit like that, not only is she out, but that's going to be the biggest mistake she's ever made. That should be your framework. The focus then on the conversation is on the behaviors that would be the appearance of impropriety that would embarrass you guys both as a couple, and embarrass her, make her look bad, because by her looking bad, you both look bad. And it invites treatment, and it invites, sort of a framework and treatment from other people that's not going to be good. Women understand that. If they act like they don't, they're just fucking with you. They're bullshitting themselves to try to open things up in a bad way. They know, they understand, and they're very impacted by the social environment and impressions and what they look like. And so use that to your advantage. And you see now, when I explain that, why knowing the reality, instead of lying to yourself because of your insecurities and your hangups and your anxieties, your existential threats and your bullshit, and trying to cap and be the alpha guy, red pill guy, this guy, that guy who doesn't get laid because most of you guys don't. And then, acting like you're so manly or whatever, because you're going to tell her this and tell whatever the fuck you guys do. You know what I mean? It's all cap and it's all bullshit. And you see how that bullshit is harmful. All right. Because it sets you up for failure. It sets you up for not holding the frame of your relationship. Your lack of awareness and knowledge is not going to excuse you from the results of the behavior you do due to that lack of awareness and knowledge. So if you're intentionally not wanting to see things and not having the awareness, because it makes you feel a certain way, it makes you feel better, that's not helping you. because now you can see when I give you the awareness and we talk about the reality, how you can use that reality to your advantage, how you can approach your relationships and set the framework so that cheating behaviors don't happen versus pushing her into more of those behaviors, and where you can draw the line. Because most of you guys are either sucking in your insecurities and your feelings of something's wrong and trying to figure it out and not wanting to look insecure to the girl, or you're then dumping it out a possessive behavior with the presumption that she will make the wrong choice, which then makes you look more insecure, and then it pushes her towards the behavior. And you guys inherently, like, part of you, a lot of you guys, part of you know that you might be pushing her to do more shit by being more possessive. And so you're like constantly in this binary trap of do I act possessive and push her, or do I not have boundaries at all? And then that just opens up the door for her to do it. Where's this middle ground? Instead of finding a middle ground between two stupid places, okay, have better game than that. All right. And get yourself out of both of those stupid places and be in a different place completely, which is that I'm going to instill the identity on my girl because she's mine. All right. That she is the one who's going to make good choices. If she proves me wrong, then she'll have those consequences. But I will go on the assumption that she will make the right choices. But those choices include not being disrespectful and not being embarrassing to herself, let alone me or the relationship. So she won't be doing the cheating behaviors. And if people make mistakes, and she might not, have good habits instilled. So I may have to vocalize some boundaries. But when I do, I'm not doing it from a place of I'm angry and offended at your behavior. I know that you're doing that because you're really going to cheat on me and make a bad choice if you keep doing those things. So I'm, going to be mad and tell you're not going to do this thing and blah. All right. That's, again, you're trapped between two stupids. All right. And you're trying to find a middle ground between two stupid places. So instead of trying to find a middle ground between stupid places, let's elevate and let's not even have those places at all. You don't need to be possessive, because all your possessiveness in the world won't do shit. She'll cheat on you anyway if that's what she's going to do. So possessiveness doesn't help you. It actually harms you because she'll just hide it better. So, but having no boundaries, that's not good either, right? Because then you're not going to even be perceived as the valuable option or the alpha at that point, right? Let alone, you're not, people will treat you the way that you will allow. So you take a different stance, which is like, I have these boundaries. I may have to illustrate those to you because of your bad habits and occasionally maybe a drive towards bad behavior, but I'm going to trust that you really want to be a good girl, or you wouldn't be here. If you don't want to be my good girl, if you don't want to be the girl who can be in the relationship I would want, well, then now you're going to be, I'm not going to be possessive. You're just going to eject you from this relationship. You'll be out of the equation. So you're here. So that is, I assume that you are trustworthy, and at least you want to be trustworthy, but you may have bad patterns, and that's okay because you're not perfect. Nobody is, but I will. When I see a pattern I don't like, I'm going to illustrate that to you, and you're going to listen. And I'm not going to illustrate it to you in a way that's possessive or in a way that demonstrates that I'm threatened. I'm going to illustrate it to you in such a way that you understand and can see, okay, that doesn't look good, and I don't want to not look good for my partner. And then that you will then make the right choices. Okay. That's the framework. That takes you out of being in between two stupid places. All right. And so that is like some game shit, man. I don't know if you guys understand what I just said there, and if you guys understand how impacting that is and can be on your relationships, but most people probably won't get it. But those of you who get it, that's going to change your whole life. Honestly, that'll change the way you handle women, period. Like when it comes to the LTR stuff, right? And your boundaries. All right. Well, I'm going to open up. I have more things, but I'll open up for questions, see what you guys got in the chat. I'm not actually looking at the chat when I talk. I let Glenn do it for me. So Glenn, what do we have? Do we have anything? Dramatic pause as I wait for Glenn. I'll fill my water up. Glenn, can you hear me? Maybe he went up and decided to take a leak. I'm sure he'll be back somewhere. Well, I don't want too much dead air or dead space, so I'm going to move on. But I'll send him a text or something. He'll see it. I don't know what he's got going on. But all right. Well, we'll move on to some other points, I guess. And I'll look as soon as hopefully he can interrupt me with questions. Because I don't know where he is. What is this chat button? No, it's just backstage chat. All right, well, okay. I'm sure he'll come. So, Glenn, if you can hear me, I'm trying to open up for questions. All right, but we'll move on. So that's some good game shit right there, man. Is that you have the frame, okay, and you empower her with the identity. All right, that is part of a programming phase of my mastermind program. It's critically important. She has been programmed, as everyone else has been, to have a certain way of thinking. A lot of that's socially conditioned. A lot of that's influenced by peers, the social environment, her friends, her family, how she grew up, and her past relationships. And if her past relationships were shitty, right, her framework is not going to be 100% solid or good. And it's up to you as a leader in the relationship to reset that framework, something that she should be enthusiastic about, because if it didn't work before and she wants it to work with you, well, then, we want to make it that way, right? We want to make it work. And so, so that's, she's going to be motivated, at least in the beginning, as long as she trusts you. So you set the frame. All right. You set the identity. You instill her with the identity of the person who can be the person who and you believe in. All right. You believe in her. You believe she can be that person. Look, if that, and I'm not saying that just as a strategy, that needs to be true. All right. If it's not true, then don't be in a relationship with her. Be dating. Okay. Have other options. Date other women. See her once a week or a few times a month. Don't be having her as an intricate part of your life when you have no trust or belief that she can be the type of person who could be the partner you'd want for long term. Now, if that's a you problem, meaning you really don't trust any girl to be that girl, that's a problem with you. Okay. Meaning no matter what any girl does, she's never going to be that person. Then that's something you need to work on. That's your inner game. All right. That's your fucked up shit up here. All right. And like a lot of you guys have that stuff. And that's, again, back to the mastermind group. That's something we work on. All right. To alleviate yourself of this problem you have in your inner game. You know what I mean? Where you can't believe any woman. A lot of that's you not believing you're enough. You don't believe you're good enough. You don't believe you're worthy enough, right? To be the person that she could, that a woman would want to show up for and be a good partner for. That's usually the problem. It's not even the girl, it's you. So if it's a you problem, still don't be in a relationship, because your ability to vet somebody out is going to be terrible. And you need to get your shit together up here. When your shit's together up here and you know that you're good enough, you're worthy enough, and you strive to be that man every single day, then, all right, then you're looking at girls who would be good potential partners. They don't have to be 100% when they, on the first date. They're not going to be. All right. But as you progress during the dating process, you see that this person is somebody I could build with. This person is somebody that could be that person for me. And you know, we could be the person for each other, right? And so you see that you believe in her abilities. So if you believe in her abilities, then you get into that commitment. All right. Now you need to instill that framework. Okay. Don't act like she's not capable or she's not going to be, or that you just don't believe in her, because what'll happen is she won't be the person. All right. So you need to instill that framework while also having your boundaries. All right. That builds up that identity in her. That gives her that reinforcement, both behaviorally as well as emotionally and mentally, to be a good girl for you. And not just for you, but for herself. And her feelings of dignity and her feelings of self-respect and confidence go up in such a way where she protects her relationship. And that's another thing. A lot of you guys like to try to make your chick not confident. You know what I mean? And so you want to make your girl insecure. A lot of you guys. That's like a strategy. You know, some of you guys call it dread because you don't do it right. So, you know, that is a strategy that a lot of you guys do when you think that if her confidence is too high, that she's going to bounce and leave you. You don't believe that you're her contextual alpha, if that's the case. You don't believe that you're showing up every day and being the best that she could do. You think that if her confidence goes up, because I'm not talking about arrogance, okay? I'm not talking about inflated egos. I'm talking about confidence. There is a difference. If you don't understand the difference, then you need more inner game work once again, okay? Because there's a big difference between someone being confident in themselves and someone having an inflated ego. Inflated egos are compensations for a lack of confidence and a lack of sense of self. Narcissists, they don't lack confidence per se, but they lack a sense of who they are. And so that's why they're so, delusionally self-important, right? All right, that's narcissism. And so it's a lack of sense of self, a lack of sense of, who they are. That's not good. An arrogant and egotistical woman will certainly cheat on you. A confident woman who understands herself and what's good for her and how she wants to show up in the world is less likely to cheat on you. All right. That confidence is built by, if that confidence is built by you and reinforced by you, you become that dominant force in her life that has been building her up. That makes her less likely to step out on you. All right. You guys who do too much dread and try to rip down a girl's confidence, what happens is because you want to make her feel like she can't do any better, whether you're aware of your behavior or not. That's the strategy. That is a mating strategy that is also unconscious. All right. That's also innate. But if you execute that strategy, what ends up happening is all it takes is a guy who's smooth enough, who wants to fuck her, to press the right buttons. I know, because I used to be that guy. All right. I used to be the guy because I didn't care whether they were in a relationship or not. That was me. Not a good thing. I rationalized that years and years ago, and it was wrong. Okay. But to some degree, if you're in the dating market, and she says, well, I'm kind of seeing somebody, guess what that means? She's open for business. Kind of seeing somebody isn't the same as I'm married. Kind of seeing somebody isn't the same as like, well, I have a serious relationship. You know what I mean? Kind of seeing somebody means she's going to kind of see somebody else. If a girl says that shit, and that's again back to the appearance of impropriety, as a guy who knows how to get women in the bedroom, it's like when a girl says, well, yeah, well, and it comes up out of where I'm kind of seeing somebody, I know that I probably have a green light right there. And I know, and especially if she is a little bit insecure, doesn't have quite the confidence or is compensating for that, or, her boyfriend that she's kind of seeing, right? The guy she's kind of seeing hasn't really built that confidence up. I know that I can swoop right in, press the right buttons, make her feel good where her boyfriend didn't make her feel good, and we are fucking. And she is happy about it. And she could be a good girl. All right. This actually fucked me up for a long time as a dude, later on, because I realized how easily you could just do that with a girl. How easily, I don't say manipulated, but how easy it is. And so then I started to go, fuck, like, is every girl that I get and am with just gonna go run off and do that shit to me now? Like, because I've had girls who've done and run off and cheated, right? In my history. And I've more often than having girls run off, I've been the dude that girls have cheated with or have mate switched to. I won't even say cheated because it's not like I was just this guy women were cheating with all the time, but mate switching. I'm kind of seeing somebody. Now I'm begging you, and now I'm going to work it out with this guy, and now I'm just going to date you. And I really don't, I put him on the back burner, right? That's what happens in dating. And that would happen all the time. I would become the guy they would come to for sex. And then they would, bitch about the other guy, and all this stuff. And so it puts you in a mental, it puts you in a state of anxiety like it can until you work it out. A state of anxiety of like, damn, dude, like these girls are scandalous. Like they'll just go off and cheat on you and cheat on anybody, So like, just run off, dude. Like what the fuck, like, so why I get into a long-term relationship with a girl, I start to care about her, like what's going to prevent her from doing that to me. Right. And that was the lack of awareness and confidence on my part. But from that behavior. Now I come to realize is that the reason she doesn't do that is because I build up that identity. That's what she wants anyway. You know what I mean? Is that I'm the person who makes her feel good that she's in a relationship with, And so when her identity is built up and her confidence is reinforced, we'll say, even if she was a confident woman to start, which is actually better if she is, if it's reinforced by me, her partner, then she's not going to be so susceptible of having her confidence reinforced with some other dude's penis, right? And so a lot of you guys who execute dread game in the wrong way, you're doing it in a way where it breaks a girl down too much and it breaks her confidence down. And you may think you're winning because in the beginning she's chasing you, right? She's trying to earn your approval. She's trying to earn, basically earn that, validation from you. So you think it's good game. It's not though, because what ends up happening is as she chases you for that validation, if she ever gets it from you, it's not instilling solid confidence usually. Usually it's, just appeasing her anxiety. And so she can get addicted to that for a minute, but what ends up happening is she resents you. So she'll resent you for the lack of confidence she has in herself based on how you treat her, which makes her very, very susceptible to having another guy swoop right in and press the right buttons, tell her that she's great and she's beautiful and she's hot and she shouldn't be putting up with guys who treat her like A, B, and C, and if she does talk about the guy, then he says, well, it's just probably his insecurities and that's why he treats you like that because, I wouldn't be too hard on him. I mean, you're a very hot girl. You could get other guys. You wouldn't have to put up with that, and that makes him insecure. That's why he acts that way. Very sinister way. That guys who with game will steal your girl. They'll say things like that, and they'll press the right buttons, and next thing you know, she's fucking the new guy, right? And so that's what happens. And you know, it's it's that dreaded stuff that just backfires on you guys. All right. And so what should we do? Let's call Glenn. I don't know why he's disappeared on me. My producer disappeared. So I'm calling him. We'll call him on air. My producer left the building. It must be some technical thing, dude, because obviously he's not, dead on the floor somewhere. So tech issues? Question mark. What's up? What's up? I tell him I'm trying to break for some questions. I don't even know how to shut this program off, because he has to do it. So I guess I'm on the air forever. What I am going to do is I don't know what his deal is or what's going on there. So what I am going to do though is I'm going to go to YouTube. That way I can actually see the chat and then I'll answer you guys questions that way. So that's a good way to go because I have no idea what's happening right now. Hopefully I'm on the air. Because I can only see right now the window that I have here, right? So we're gonna go to my channel. Thanks for you guys' patience. I'm gonna hit the live button and look at myself. Okay. Wow. Moderation activity is now hidden. Okay, I don't know what that means. All right, cool. All right, go away. All right, sweet. Okay, well, now I'll look at questions. My mic is hissing. Is it hissing? I'm working with Sneako now. You guys are too into the drama. I really don't give a fuck what people do. You know what I mean? I'm working with Sneako. I think, John met him, I guess. I don't know anything about it because I haven't talked to John much about it. I just, I threw some, it's whatever. It's a support, whatever it is. But, having that guy on the air is I don't know anything about him. You know what I mean? Why is it a bad move? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not working with anybody. I'm just doing what I do here, guys. Like that shit, right there, that's not important, And if I have him on the air, if I talk to him about it, it's a whose show, whose frame. It's mine, right? It'll be a higher level conversation. If there's something wrong with that guy or whatever, I don't know if there's anything wrong with him or anything bad about him. I don't know anything about it. You guys care more about that shit. I think that's a waste of time, So if I have somebody on, it's not even necessarily a reflection of who I am necessarily. If there's a value to have a person on my show or for me to jump on someone else's show, I'll do it. If there isn't any value to it, I won't. I'm not here to control what other people do. I will say this. The only thing I do know about that guy is he has built 2 channels to 1 million subscribers. So he sure as hell knows algorithms and he sure as hell knows about, how to build an interest in an audience better than I do for sure. So I'll give him the props there, but that's the only thing I actually know about him. I know there's a lot of drama and stuff, which is why you guys pay attention, which is why he's got 1 million subscribers. I don't participate in that as much, so maybe I just don't get as much play. So I don't know, man.
Is that about the Sneako?
Yeah, there you are, dude. What happened to you? You fucking
I got
disappeared.
glitched out. Like,
damn, dude. Yeah, I've been trying to break for questions for a bit, and I just jumped on the chat. But no, okay, good. You're here. So yeah, I was opening up for questions. So
yeah.
now, yeah. So we can
T
step in.
Diamond
I'll let you
says,
do it.
feminism is used to pop control. Do you believe Red Pill is used to also? The Manosphere is full of women bashing instead of males of male empowerment.
I think she's asking if there's some grand scheme here where it's used to control other people. Well, here's the thing. There's always people out there who are going to try to control other people. And so any ideology that gets put out there, whether good, bad, or indifferent, is going to be used by a certain number or members of the population in order to control you. You know, I think the biggest like scam going on right now on a large scale is wokeism. All right. Like wokeism is appealing to people's sense of shame, guilt, and injustice. It appeals to the sensibility of shame, guilt, and injustice, and of feelings of injustice and feelings of wanting not just to fight against the injustice, because certainly most people who claim to be woke are not jumping in any kind of uh, situation where they're in any kind of danger to protect anybody from anything, or it's very self-serving. They want to look like somebody who cares about the injustice. They want to look the part. They want to look like the person who's a good person, where other people who are less woke than them, they're the bad people. Anyway, that's what's being presented, and there's reasons like no type of movement or social conditioning works to include feminism without stimulating some parts of our innate drives. All right. And so, but wokeism with feminism can be lumped into that too, is the biggest scam going, because the people who, whether it's large corporations or people in, power and in office, they don't care about those issues as much and nearly as much as they care about your vote. They care about the power they get and your support and your money. When some company dry throat, hold on. When some company has a bunch of standards that they advertise to pat themselves on the back to get your money, they don't really give a shit about the issue as much as they care about your money. And that's what you guys got to understand. Now, as Red Pill becomes more popular, well, sure, it becomes a counter narrative to some of that other stuff. And there will be people who will use it to control. Even right now, it's a catchphrase or catchword to get people to watch their shit on YouTube, right? See, it's done as a manipulation, right? So like anything that could be good or true or not, things that are bad, good, different, doesn't matter. Any of these ideas will always be used by people to control. I don't think anyone's creating it to control anybody. Even wokeism, I don't think was created necessarily to control people, but I think that's what it develops into very quickly. So, yeah.
What about Thor's question here? Paul, do you oppose Pearl? She made a mockery out of everything we stand for in this space.
I don't oppose Pearl because I don't know what mockery first of all, what is it we stand for? I'm just here helping you guys with your relationships and your mindset. I have a set of principles. Now, my set of principles may coincide with friends in the red pill space, friends outside of the red pill space as well, friends in the mainstream. It may not coincide too with other people. I take everybody on an individual basis. There is this idea that there's some kind of consistency, or like we're like this group now with this group identity, and that this person's embarrassing my group identity. That stuff is kind of all bullshit. I hate to tell you, because as anything grows, the group is going to get wider and the standards for that group are going to get wider. There's people who claim like red pill or Black Pill or Manosphere or whatever, who are absolutely not helping anybody, the men or otherwise, and they're just there just to stimulate your anxiety. Now, as far as Pearl goes, I pay very little attention to what she does. I know that she has an expert marketing team and that she has grown her channel exponentially. I have a lot of respect for that in the marketing she's done. And I have respect for some of the things I've seen that she said, but I don't, know what her motive is. I'm not going to agree with everything she says or does. I'm not going to be for or against her until I have an opportunity to interact with her one-on-one. There is no consistency when it comes to space. So this question, I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, I hate to say, I don't know what she did that was wrong. I'm not, or like, I just because I don't know, I'm not aware. Same with like Sneako. Like, someone's like, well, are you going to be working with Sneako?
Yeah, I saw that too. Like,
He doesn't know who I am. I don't really know who he is. I only know that he's met up with John in Japan. And
yeah,
I only know that
the biggest thing is, I guess, for Sneako is that like he was coming after people lately, and like got exposed for being a cuck or something like that, and then like yeah, I don't know. Another question from Thelonious. He asks, why is it wrong to have an affair with a cheating wife? Paul used to do it.
That's a good question, right?
Yeah.
So, because I mean, it actually just first of all, just because I used to do a lot of things that were fucked up. So don't want to, you don't want to just because I did something that doesn't mean it was always good. You know what I mean? But it's like my rationalization back in the day when I was like more single, right? Was that these chicks are going to cheat anyways. So who cares? If it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. And there's some truth to that, and that's why it's not like, is it the biggest moral, like, I don't see it as like at a really high level of breaking some moral stuff of a single guy doing it, but it's still not good and I don't recommend it. Now, why don't I recommend it? Well, the reason why is because you got to look at your life outside of broads and getting laid and women. Okay. And when you're dealing with a chick who is married to somebody else or in a relationship and then fucking you on the side, it's like there is no long-term success there. You have to understand there is nothing that will happen long-term. She is already in the framework of somebody, in the identity of somebody who would do that. And that's the same identity that she will have and have a very, very hard time breaking free of. Not impossible, but a hard time breaking free of in a new relationship. And so even if she, leaves that person eventually, decides to be with you, when things get tough, or when things get uncertain for her, and women and their emotions, so things will always get uncertain at some point. Her default and her identity will be to go right back into that old framework and into the framework she had with you just when you were the person she was cheating with. You know what I mean? It's not, so we know it's not, there's no foundation for a long-term relationship there. I'm not saying it's impossible, because it has happened before where it has been successful, but so what? A broken clock's right twice a day too, right? I mean, just because it's happened, that doesn't mean it's good on your probabilities. But the other thing that it does for you too is it just puts you in a bad mental framework. It goes back to what you put out comes back to you, not because of esoteric, The Secret, magical thinking, but because your behaviors create a response in the world, and that world then is responding to your behaviors and reflecting it back on you. And so if you're a guy who's has no problem being somebody who's a source of ruining someone else's relationships, Like, that's going to kind of haunt you later when you try to do your own relationships. When you're the guy, I'll tell you, when you're the guy that girls would cheat with, it becomes difficult to not be paranoid about the girl you're with doing the same thing, because you realize that you're not that fucking special. You are, but you're not, and that it's not hard for somebody to press some buttons and cause your girl to go the other way. And it can make you very paranoid, and it can make you not want to be in long-term relationships. Now, the reality is it's not objective to think that way. But when you are doing that, and you don't care about it, well, there's a lot of women who will cheat with you. And so it skews your perception of the world. It's like watching, I don't know, bad news all the time and then thinking the world is like this disproportionately bad place. When the reality is the bad news that happens is a small percentage of the time, but you've magnified it in your mind because that's what you've been focused on. And then you're walking around the world thinking that the world's this horrible place when it's not. It's a place that is neutral. It's a place that is a lot of good things happen, but bad things happen too, right? Objectively, you're not being objective. And that's the problem. You really kind of get what you focus on. And so if you're focused on being with women who are doing shitty, sinister behavior, that becomes the world you live in your paradigm for what you think about women. You see what I mean? And so when you're banging, these human beings who don't have good sense of self, don't have good morality, don't have good behaviors, you know what I mean? And they're doing it, they're participating, doing it with you, and you develop these bonds with them too. It's not like they're animals and you don't care about them. I mean, like, there's a humanness to them. They're more human and good than they are their bad behaviors. But their bad behaviors, though, are there. And then you magnify that in your mind as you have experience after experience with dumb slut here, party girl here, girl that's married here, girl that's cheating here. You see what I'm saying? This is the danger of like PUA stuff in a way, is that you magnify your experiences with girls who are problematic. And then your mental framework tends to be that girls are just all problematic. When the reality is every girl has a propensity to be like that because of their mammalian brain. But on the wide scale, most girls aren't really like that. There's just a percentage that are. And then
Are you
there's this,
saying that all girls are not for the streets?
I
All girls are
say
not for
that
the streets. Are you serious?
I say that all girls could be in the streets, but a lot of them choose not to be. We'll put it like that.
What about Russell Wilson's wife, Sierra, wearing the dress?
Well, that's definitely for the streets, though. She's definitely for the streets. She chooses the streets. It's a question. What choice do these girls make? Do they choose the streets or do they choose somewhere else, right? And, oh, you're muted, Glenn. You're muted, bro.
Women will be like, she's allowed to wear this. Power to Sierra for wearing this outfit.
Yeah, part of being a slut.
But then it's like, how dare you look at her that way? So it's like, isn't that kind of hypocritical?
Of course it's hypocritical, but it's hypocritical out in the streets, man. You know that.
That's the streets.
It's hypocritical out in the streets, yeah. And that's the thing, though. That's what a lot of girls make choices just like guys do. And so when you're banging a bunch of, I'll call them girls who are making a lot of bad choices for themselves, that becomes your reality. That's what you think the world is made out of. It's just like these guys. Mentioning Sneako, I did catch a portion of John's show, MLD, where he had him on and they were in studio and stuff, right? And his paradigm, because he's a guy who's mostly on the internet, right? Because that's how he makes his money, and he has his audience, and he makes good money doing it. And then he's in places like Miami and stuff like that. He's exposed, and he's with, he's exposing himself to a small subset of women out there. And his paradigm is that, if you're an ordinary guy, you're fucked. You can't get good girls. Like, you can't find a good, you're screwed out there. It's screwed out there, because in his comments, and I do admire, despite all the bullshit, I don't know. I only saw this clip. I admired his like transparency and honesty on it. He said, I'm a guy who's been pretty successful, and I have, I check a lot of boxes for girls, and I've had trouble. Like, I have woman trouble. Like, I have problems. Like, how the fuck? And so I admire that honesty, right? And he's not trying to cap. He's saying that is a real thing. So I did admire that, and I looked at that, and I just kind of had to laugh though, because he is and John had mentioned this too. He is looking at a small subset of girls in Miami, right, that would show up on, let's say, Fresh and Fit podcast, who have an OnlyFans site to promote. You know what I mean? Well, if my subset of girls are girls that, I'm dropping in their DMs to get them, I'm using saying what Myron and Fresh does, they'll drop into girls' DMs, they show massive social proof with the show and their Instagram and everything, and then they get a girl on, they get a girl to come on, and then sometimes they'll date those girls or whatever. Hey, I'm not hating on the game. That's their game. That's what they want to do. They, whatever. You know what I mean? It's not, that's how they get these girls on the show. Like, it's a business, and no hate on this end of it, but that's the girls you're dealing with though. That's the subset of women you're dealing with. You begin to think that that's what all women are like. You know what I mean? Even if logically it's not true, that's your experience. If you're banging a bunch of girls who are, have this problem, that problem, married, and this one has a boyfriend, whatever, and you're just sort of, part of your rotation, you begin to think that's what all the girls are like, when they're not. You know what I'm saying? To use a Fresh and Fit example, dude, half of those girls aren't even that attractive in my opinion. They just happen to act like it's you guys get dragged into the clout too. Simps and the simps of the world get dragged into the clout. Meaning a girl who is literally average at best acts like she's got something going for her, is hot, acts a little bit slutty and signals, and you see nothing but dudes like fire in the chat for that girl, going for her, paying, sending her money. She doesn't even need to be attractive. But here's the part that you fucking guys don't realize, especially some of you guys who don't get off the damn computer screen. You go to a place like Ohio, all right, or some shit, which is like the worst state out of all 50 states is Ohio, I got to mess with my Ohio people being up here in Michigan. I mean, you go to Ohio, though, it doesn't get much more ordinary than Ohio, right? And you meet hot bitches wearing, I don't know, pair of fucking jeans and a, Carhartt overalls or some shit, and naked, they look better than the OnlyFans model that guys are sending money to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have girls, there are pretty girls all over the world, and they don't even think or care about the things that OnlyFans Fresh and Fit girls think about.
Ohio,
for example.
You said Ohio?
The girls, what's that?
You said Ohio?
Yeah.
Hey, guys in Ohio. Guys in Ohio, hit us up in the chat. We want to see these Ohio girls.
There's actually hot girls in Ohio, man. There's hot girls in every state. Now, some areas, actually, Michigan is really handicapped for hot girls. I'm going to say there's actually hotter women in Ohio. I shit on Ohio mainly because I'm jealous about the women down there. It's the most boring state in the world. There's pretty girls in Ohio, though. And there's pretty girls in Indiana. There's just these ordinary places where, I mean, if you're in a real small town, then population's low, you do have less opportunity, but you go anywhere, Tennessee, Cincinnati, like, you go to these places, there are hot girls everywhere who don't think like Fresh and Fit girls. They don't think like the party girls. They don't think like the club girls in Toronto that when I hung out with Justin Marks in Toronto, you know what I mean? Like, because that's a subset of girls. It's not every girl. and until you travel, until you meet people, and not meet people just with club game, meet people on the streets, meet people in coffee places, meet people at social events or at speaking events or things like that, right? Business. Then you start to really realize, okay, girls have a lot of similarities in their drives, but what they focus on and what they think is important and how they act is very different. It can be very different from their circles. So, no, ordinary guys can get hot girls all the time with the right game. And they don't even have to have any of the shit that some guy who is, clout chasing on the internet thinks he has to have, right? Or some guy who's even high value and, makes good money and stuff like that. There's ordinary guys out there that will pull a hot girl and have a better relationship with that girl than that guy who's got status and money. Because the guy with status and money, let's say he's only hanging out with girls who are gold diggers who want to get on his boat. You know what I mean? Like he's not opening up the paradigm of opportunities. Remember, your success in relationships, it's based on your sexual market value, but also based on your game, all right, and your skills with women, and also based on your opportunity. If you've isolated your opportunity to one subset of girls, you're missing a whole other groups of people that might be better choices. But anyways, back to the marriage thing. Like, why not just bang married girls? The real reason is because that puts you into a subset of behaviors and girls, and it sneaks up on you, and it's right there, and it makes you really over time. It jades how you see women, and it affects your ability to have good, healthy relationships with other women. Now, the other side of it too is then it's also a scarcity. So you're also reflecting back on yourself that you have a scarcity of options. Why do you have to bang this girl who is clearly in an entanglement that could affect your life in a really bad way? Like if husband finds out and he wants to fight you or murder you or, vandalize your shit or, create some drama, create some problems. I mean, hell, like I'm not afraid of being necessarily murdered by some guy. I wasn't back then. I was, I didn't give a shit about the husbands. I'm like, if they come at me, I don't care. Right. Because, okay, I'm a tough guy, that and this and that. Right. But the reality is that's still a problem, isn't it? Like husband comes at me and I beat him. Not only did I bang his wife, but now I beat him. So first of all, that makes me a real piece of shit. Second of all is now I'm going through the court system for beating some guy after I've been banging his wife. How well does that work out? You know what I mean? Like that's not going to go well. That's a lot of money in court fines and some potential problems for me. Why am I inviting drama and bullshit in my life versus chasing excellence when I could just get with girls who don't have these entanglements, who are just as attractive or if not more attractive? You see, that's the scarcity of it too. So it's like when you do certain things, your behaviors have consequences. Your choices have consequences. And what you think is a small choice that isn't that big of a deal ends up having these bigger consequences in your life that are very subtle and sometimes very covert and, can put you in these messes. And I, in the past, had gotten into messes with girls who were in relationships, who wanted to, they were in this conflict and they wanted to be with me and they wouldn't break up with the person they were with. And like just all this drama, right? And it's like, it's inviting a lot of BS into your life. As I've gotten wiser, all right, with more experience, I've recognized that I don't want to invite more BS into my life than what I have to. This is why I don't have an answer about Pearl and her, whether I like her or not. I don't know her. I've never met her. She never invited me on my show and I don't watch her shit. I don't invite BS into my life. You see, and that's a big thing. And so if you mess around with a married chick or a girl who's with a boyfriend, like not a girl who says, well, I'm kind of dating or seeing somebody, a girl who's really with a boyfriend, like they're engaged, they're married, or they've been in a relationship for 5 years, something like that. You really cross that line, dude. No matter how tempting it may be, because the girl, it's whatever. It's tempting sometimes, but it's inviting a lot of bullshit in your life. And you have to ask yourself, are you worth more than that? You see, because the value you have in your S&V will only go as high as you see yourself. And if you don't think you're worth more than some bullshit that you're inviting in your life by fucking married girls, that's going to reflect in other areas of your life. It's going to reflect in your friendships. It's going to reflect in your business and your money. It's going to reflect everywhere else, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, so any other questions? Anything else we got going on, Glenn?
Oh, no, we're good.
All right. Cool.
Nothing in there like pregnant, important.
Yeah.
All right. But really, Ohio, huh?
Dude, there's been some really good looking girls out of Ohio. I'm just saying. So it can happen. I think every state, there's you go to a populated enough area in every part of the world, not just state. United States. In fact, getting out of the United States is probably better. There's actually even more attractive women outside of the United States. Because of
the study,
obesity.
There's a study that came out.
What's that?
Oh yeah, there's a study that came out. I want to say it was done. I saw it on the New York Post.
Yeah,
the other day, and it said that more married women cheat for novelty and variety.
That's right.
And that so women are cheating at a higher rate than men are. So then what do you guys do? Right? How do they navigate that? Do they just say, okay, the odds are that she might cheat on me? Or
yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, first of all, it's the paradigm in the relationship. So variety is a driver of sex, right? So like a major drive, a major thing that needs to get solved in the relationship is variety. So like, you want to have a good, consistent sex life with your partner where you're bringing in variety into the picture, on a regular basis. That doesn't mean that every sex encounter is completely different, like, well, we dressed up like furries last time, and this time, we're gonna do it in a public park. Like, it doesn't have to be that crazy, you know what I mean? But it's introducing some variety and some progression into your sex life and doing that regular. And the frequency of what regular means will depend on the partner, but that's critical to your sexual satisfaction and hers. Women get bored sexually much faster than guys do. That's a fact. Right. And so, like, and most women have a mental paradigm of settling into married sex, which is less frequent and more and less variety. All right. And then it gets dull. Don't let her run the frame of your sex life. That's what a lot of you guys do. All right. You guys let her run the frame of sex, and it's according to her sex drive. Nope. You're doing it wrong. You're fucking it up. Okay. And so, and Alex can get into that more, but it's the frame needs to be completely different. All right. Sex needs to be a solution to a lot of things in the relationship, and she needs to see it as that. Sex is something that she does whether she feels like it or not, because the end result of sex is always a good time. It's like, you can never have a bad pizza kind of thing, right? And assuming that you both love pizza. So that's where the paradigm has to shift. You're not doing, a lot of you guys get so caught up on her initiating because that's where your confidence level is. Like, you don't think if she's not initiating and then you're just like not doing it. You guys are nuts with how you run that shit. Like, you're not running anything, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, a submissive woman's going to want your initiation of it. And she needs to be like, it needs to be a framework where, whether she's ovulating or not, whether she's in the mood or not, she's banging. All right. Because the end result's always good. So that's first things first. And you need to stop letting her run the frame, because she'll run the frame into the ground and then she'll go sleep with somebody else. Okay. Like, that's because she's expecting you to do it. And if you don't do it, then she'll just run it into the ground. She will go based on what's socially conditioned. And understand, most women are socially conditioned into a beta bucks paradigm when it comes to relationships. So even if you were the alpha and you contextual alpha that she found herself in a relationship with, well, her mom, her sister, her friends, they all have the beta boyfriends that they don't really want to have sex with. You know what I mean? And so that's the social conditioning. And so if she is not being led into something different, that's probably what she'll default to. Not every time and not every girl, okay, but a lot of the times. And you're gonna find, and the times where a girl is sleeping with outside of, banging other dudes outside of the marriage for variety, that's very common. And in fact, in my cheating course, which is now, actually going to be integrated into the my mastermind program now, but my course I did on boundary setting and cheating, I explained that paradigm. And a lot of women, there's women out there that are married or in long-term relationships, and they will just have variety sex like once every 6 months, and they'll hold on to that idea as the fling and the framework and the passionate thing. Like, it's like their escape, from their relationship. It's like they go they feel like they're banging above their pay grade, and then they go back to their, and that's the cheating. That's more or less the alpha fucks beta bucks paradigm kind of cheating. And the guys never know about it. She'll never tell him, like he'll never know. And the problem with that isn't just the cheating, it's how she shows up now in the relationship with that guy. So how do you prevent that? Well, you prevent that with sex. You prevent that by having good sex and having the best sex that she could ever have, and having it and introducing variety. These are conversations and topics I have behind a paywall so that guys can continue to stimulate their girls into having, the best sex of their lives. So that creates now a major motivation to not want to seek that outside the relationship. And then, of course, depending on your paradigm, introducing women into the picture can give her a level of variety that, traditional monogamy struggles with having. Not saying that complete traditional monogamy can't be done, but it is more of a challenge to have the variety. But instead of having a variety of other dudes, right, you invite a occasional variety of women, because women are attractive to women, generally speaking. And by having that paradigm, it doesn't disrupt the dynamic between the man woman dynamic in that heterosexual relationship. Because it's different when a woman is introduced than if a guy is introduced. And so that's how. You don't have to always introduce other women, but you just need to keep the variety of sex going. And if the sex life is great, that is a major that's a major thing that discourages her from trying to seek any kind of sex outside of the relationship. All right. So, anything else? Or should I move on to my other points?
Move on. We can answer the rest of these questions towards the end.
All right. I don't have too many other points. I'm just going to sum it up, but so let's see. So we talked about possessiveness, how that backfires. All right. We talked about how you want to set the boundaries without assuming that she is the villain, terrible person who's definitely going to cheat on you. You want to instill a good identity, okay, as somebody who's capable of being a good partner towards you, and that's someone that you will trust to make the right choices. And that puts her in the identity of making good choices. And then if she doesn't, then you institute the consequences for that. And then remember too, you always have, this is another element, and this is talked about in my free guide, but transparency. By being transparent, having conversations, her telling you what's going on, and not feeling like she can't talk to you is really important. And also her knowing that you can check up on shit if you want. Like, if something doesn't seem right, you can say, this doesn't feel right. And you can ask for proof. You can say, we're going to open your phone up right now. Or, that doesn't make sense. You disappeared for an evening and have been dead on comms. So I need to know where and now I'm just hearing from you. Like, and we're supposed to be in a relationship. Send me a ping. I want to know you're at the geographic location, or perhaps you guys are following each other. With phones nowadays, transparency should be an assumed thing in a committed relationship, right? And you should have no problems with that. That doesn't mean, you don't need to be putting GPS trackers on each other's cars covertly and breaking trust. It's not about breaking trust. It's not about doing things behind her back. It's about doing things right in front of her face and letting her know, hey, like, if I have any concerns, I can quell those concerns. We can deal with that, and not in a way that's divisive, but we're going to talk about why these concerns are happening, what are causing these behaviors. And you may never have to do it. You may never feel like you need to go through her phone. You know what I mean? And that should be the way. Like, you shouldn't ever have to feel like you have to, but her knowing you have the option of checking up, right? It's not this thing where you're shamed into, don't you trust me? Like, no, trust but verify. Yeah, I trust you, but part of that trust is I can always verify, and that needs to be the framework, because her desire for you and the sex life and all those things are going to be the biggest things that will prevent her from cheating most of the time. But again, like, there's time, women are responding to their emotions. And if her emotions aren't high for you because you're going through some trouble, or you're, away for a while, or something's going on, there's got to be other barriers. Transparency is your next biggest barrier. She's very concerned about looking like an idiot in social embarrassment. So if she thinks she can DM and text guys in private and have sexual emotional relationships in private, never being found out, that's far more likely than that she would execute those mammalian brain drives to do that. If rather than her knowing that these messages she's sending could be found out, she understands that you could at any moment go take a look and see that she's sending inappropriate messages to guys, or that other people could find out, even, right? That now almost eliminates that problem. That becomes that barrier. So don't let women shame you into thinking that you shouldn't be transparent. The difference is, though, it's not done in a draconian, possessive way. All right. It's done in a way where that's just how we do relationships, right? I mean, we make sure we're not having any secrets. And if you don't have secrets, then you don't care if I look. That doesn't, if I were to have a concern, I could say, listen, I'm concerned. Here's why I want to look at your phone. If I'm proven wrong, then cool. If I'm not proven wrong, but if what I see, demonstrates that you're telling me the truth, and we're good. And now you need to know and understand that it's the appearance of impropriety and problems is the reason why I'm having these feelings. Not because I'm insecure, not because I think another guy is better than me and you're going to run off with that guy. That's not the message I'm sending here. The message I'm sending is, I trust you. I want to keep trusting you, but these things don't line up. And so I want to verify now so that I can have that peace of mind. All right. I mean, it's the behaviors that don't line up are the reason why I want to verify, not because I think you would do it. You know what I mean? And then it's done in the context of a healthy conversation and communication. You should feel good when you're going to leave or your girlfriend leaves somewhere, knowing that she's out representing your relationship in a good way. You should feel good about that. You shouldn't feel like all kinds of dread and wondering what she's going to do and then being afraid to want to look at her phone or whatever. Or when you decide to look at her phone, you sneak around and do it in private, right? You do it covertly, which is a breach of trust now, right? No, it's transparent. You don't feel the right way. It's either you and it's your inner game, which you then work on your inner game, or there is something that doesn't look right. And then you address what doesn't look right. All right. And if you got to use, you may never actually look at the phone, but she knows you could do that. She knows that you could try, you could find out. And if she knows you could find out, that gives her that extra step or barrier or layer. All right. But you guys who try to enforce this possessive transparency and you're assholes about it, where you treat her like she's a cheater, let me look at your phone because I know you're fucking around, You guys who act like that, what are you doing? Putting her in that identity. All right. And that's not going to be healthy or good. All right. So some other things, again, that'll push her. Again, I mentioned being too much dread, acting like you don't care, can often cause her to eventually sleep with somebody who does. All right. That's that lack of self-esteem. Remember, you want to boost her confidence, not rip her down so badly that she's susceptible to other dudes who will capitalize on it. All right. And then the third thing I did want to cover is just you being insecure. So if you have an inner game problem and it's actually you being overhyped up or oversensitive and insecure, not the type of insecure that a girl says where she just pushes the insecure button, to try to get you to react the way she wants, but genuinely you have this inner anxiety that's not founded by evidence. If that's where you're at, if that's what's going on, that's something that you need to then definitely, work on it with yourself. Because here's the problem with insecurity: you confuse her brain and her attraction to you. If you are coming across or perceived as genuinely insecure, what that does is it makes her feel like she made the wrong choice in a mate. She feels like from a hypergamy perspective, choosing you is the bad choice because you are the one who sets the frame, right? So your framework is, if you're insecure, the framework becomes, I'm not good enough for this chick. And that's why I think she's going to sleep with other people. And so when that's your framework and you exude that because that's where you're at and you can't hide that shit, which is why you got to work on your inner game, and that's where you need to click that link and be in my mastermind program, or you need to at least get the alpha mindset course. All that stuff's available in the chat, in the video description as links. And you need to work on this because the strength of your inner game is what's going to allow for the strength in your relationships, right? And the strength of your frame. If your inner game is that you're not good enough, you will exude that. And once you exude that, you do needy and weak behaviors, you push her into other guys. Guys, you will especially do this during the dating phase when you're calling too much, texting too much, like your behaviors is just coming from a position of weakness and fear of loss and losing this girl, knowing that she has other options. That pushes her into other options. That sends the message to her brain that you are not the best mating choice because the frame that you're presenting is, I'm not the best mating choice. That's why I'm insecure and texting you all the time. That's why I'm being possessive and needy and weak. That's why I'm getting butthurt. That's why I'm, trying to spend too much time with you too early or dumping my emotions on you too early. Like all of those insecure, needy, weak sort of beta behaviors, the reason those will push a girl away into another guy. And it is a natural consequence to that. Well, shit, if you do that stuff in the beginning, most of you guys know you'll push her into somebody else. Most of you guys, a lot of you guys. Some of you guys don't know that yet, but welcome to the party. Okay. That's the way it is. But if you do that even, a year, 2 years, 10 years into a relationship, she starts to lose that sense that she made a good choice. That does push her into other options. If all of a sudden, like if in the relationship, you're being this weak and insecure and needy person, that sends that message that you're not the good choice and that she has better options. Not a good framework to program into her brain. Okay. And this is what some of the things you guys do. It pushes women into cheating. All right. And so a lot of times when women do cheat, there's times when they will not take the responsibility and blame you for it. And this is actually a really sinister move. They don't realize how sinister it is, but not doing it specifically to mess with you. They're doing it to protect themselves. But what they're trying to do when a girl says, you just had been so toxic and you had these toxic fights and we had all these bad fights and you would get mad and you would, you punch the drywall or you kick something and threw something because you would get so mad and that just, broke me down emotionally. And that's why I banged Steve from accounting. All right. Like, when she blames you for the cheating and says, yeah, I'm having sex with this guy, but that's because of you're just a toxic person. And remember all these fights we had. All right. That is a strategy that she isn't aware of what she's doing. But here's the results, because here's the reward. Okay. The reward is she absolves herself of being a bad chimpanzee. She wouldn't have cheated or done the bad thing if it wasn't for you being a bad person. So she absolves herself of that. And then the new guy gets to say and lie to himself going, yeah, like that was a bad guy and I'm a good guy. And really, she's a good girl, but she was with a bad guy. So naturally, she had sex with me outside of outside of a relationship and her commitment and cheated, but it's not because she's a bad girl though, but because she's a good girl trapped in a bad guy. And I'm going to rescue her and save her, you see, because all these fucking guys want to save somebody. All right. And so that's, rewards her. She just gets the guy to want to save the rebound guy, the cheating partner gets to be the savior for a day, and she gets to absolve, she gets to be a hero, in fact, from the cheating. She cheated, but she's now the hero for leaving the toxic relationship because you got mad and yelled or you threw something and whatever. I mean, she probably, she threw a brick through your car one day, but you threw you threw a glass or a pen or something, or, got mad, lost your cool, a couple times. Well, okay. So now you're the toxic. You're toxic and it's a good thing she cheated. You know what I mean? Ran off, treated you like shit. See, she gets to justify all of her bad behavior because you had some bad behavior. All right. And sometimes the behavior isn't even that bad. Like sometimes it's really ambiguous, like lack of support or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he could have been more supportive, but okay. Doesn't justify all the bad behavior. And that's what a lot of women will do when they mate switch, when they cheat. They absolve themselves of blame. That gives them sympathy from the other guys who really just want, her vagina anyway, so it's anything to justify them getting her vagina, and so they don't care. They get to now make her be the good girl. Now, the other thing, though, the other side of it, a little less obvious, is she hooks you in as a rebound option. She gets to use you now as a point of validation. She gets to use you now as a possible person to run back to if the cheating relationships don't work. That's the part a lot of guys don't recognize, because by saying it's your fault that I cheated, what she effectively is saying is that there's an injustice here that happened to me, and that's why I did this bad thing, and that injustice is your fault. And now you have to sit with those consequences, sir. I'm going to go bang Kevin from sales. Right? What that does is that hangs up the guy she's cheated on that relationship, in that dynamic. It puts the guy psychologically, if he allows it, of course, puts him in what I call an injustice loop. All right. So an injustice loop is a really worth its own show. Okay. It's the source of a lot of your guys' traumas and problems and why you guys fuck up things. It's because you can't move on. The reason you can't move on is you say you're moving on, but you're really not. Psychologically, mentally, you're trapped in the past relationship, or you're trapped in the past injustice or situation. And that injustice frames every relationship or similar situation moving forward. That's what happens to a lot of you guys. Guy goes through a bad divorce, he gets screwed over financially, let's say. That now becomes the framework of all of his other dating scenarios moving forward. He meets an entirely different girl, a good situation. He's hypersensitive and worried about being financially, having something happen to him. He's hypersensitive and worried. He won't cohabitate with her, for example. Also another topic for another show. He won't get too far into it with her because he doesn't want to get fucked over from his divorce. The divorce is the injustice. He's caught in an injustice loop, which is he keeps coming back to that point in the past that he hasn't gotten through or over and hasn't fully learned from and hasn't fully adapted from. He keeps going back to that, and that frames the future for all of those things. A girl sets up an injustice loop when she says, it's your fault I cheated. Because now the guy, because the sinister part of it is she may pick something that is actually something bad that you did, right? So let's say in the example of, Kyle, who drinks too much Monsters, who punches drywall, he had a couple toxic fights with her. She may have been just as toxic, but he was still wrong for those toxic fights. He was still wrong for punching the drywall. He fucked up there. And so what happens is she goes, I'm going to do that, and it's your fault because of blah. And so let's say even if Kyle, stops drinking Monsters and gets some therapy, and Kyle's a funny character in my story, I feel like. And he calms himself down a bit, and he's got more emotional self-control because he bought my Alpha Mindset course, obviously. Of course, if he did that, though, he wouldn't be in the injustice loop, but that's another thing. Yeah, so he gets himself under control, but now he is still hung up on that girl that he fucked up with because he made a mistake. He screwed up, and that caused her to cheat. It caused him to break down. She wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for me drinking too many Monsters and punching drywall. So, I'm 10 years later now, still hung up on Karen, who, is now fat and married, but I still think she's something because I'm trapped in the past. You see, it's just this injustice loop because Kyle can't forgive himself. So sometimes you're the person who does the injustice and you're not even recognizing. Sometimes you just do the injustice and you lose some shit and you can't forgive yourself. Sometimes the injustice happens to you and you can't get over it. You're constantly, women screw you over because I had an ex in college that screwed me over. Or it's like you did it to each other. Kyle punched drywall. She cried. She cheated, blamed Kyle. Everybody's the enemy. Okay. But now Kyle continued to blame himself for all of the sinister shit she did to mate switch and cheat and make sure he found out and all of that stuff. He blames himself for it and he can't move on. That's what she sets up when she blames you. Why does that work to her advantage? Again, it's unconscious. It's not like most women don't know they're doing this, but it works to her advantage because by you being hung up on it, you're always a point of origin for her to go back to when she needs validation. Even if you're mad at her, she's getting validated by that, you see? So she gets validation from you. She gets attention from you. You know what I mean? And, when she's, 10 years later, she's lost her, hip to waist ratio and isn't looking as hot as she used to, you're still hung up on her. You know what I mean? That's what ends up happening, right? It's like that's that wrong that you were never able to right. And so she sets that up by blaming you and putting you in this. And that's the real thing. And it could be over any of this stuff. It could be you being too possessive. It could be you being toxic in some arguments, right? Or losing your cool. Could be controlling behaviors. Could be, something you did to her and she resented you. Honestly, if a girl's going to do this, she could literally pick any fucking thing because you'll never be perfect. There'll always be some reason. And that's a big reason and a big justifying factor for girls to run off and cheat. They often do it is that because you notice when you're dating a new girl, she's never usually at fault for all of the breakups. It's always something happened to her. Yeah. So what happens, right, is she does shitty things to her partner and then justifies what she does, picking any fault he has or anything he's ever done. So, that's a thing that they do. And you have to be able to have good inner game. And that's something I can help you with and help you do that, behind, in some of the programs where you can get over those injustices, so you can have a clean slate and you're not held back by them. Because the only person holding you back from those injustices is yourself. Right. And women do set that up because it serves their ends and serves their needs at your expense. But you're the one who's in control of it. You don't have to let it be like that. And then I guess as a last point is as a warning sign or red flag. A major concern is when a girl is creating problems or injustices or blowing things out of proportion. That is a major concern and a sign for her running off to cheat on you or do something bad to you. Because women have this sense of entitlement when it comes, and this is a general feeling because it is instinctual, entitlement when it comes to fairness. In other words, they want things to be equal. They want that sense of equality. And so if they perceive you've done a wrong to her, and they want to hold on to, if they're the type of person that doesn't, and this is why, as a green flag / red flag, whatever, if she doesn't have these qualities, you need to pick someone who is forgiving. You need to pick someone who has gratitude. You need to pick someone who's not a grudge holder. And you recognize those things in how she treats other people in her life. Okay. That's really important because when you get it for LTR, because you get in a long-term relationship, the grudge holder, the unforgiving person, that's the person, and the person who lacks gratitude, she's going to have a sense of entitlement with anything you've ever done that she feels wronged by. And it may not even be anything that's actually wrong. It could just be a feeling she has of you doing something wrong. That's how crazy it is. You could be like, let's say on your social media and doing some stuff, and she could think you're cheating on your social media and then use that as a justification to go talk to other dudes. Seriously, it happens all the time. It's crazy land. You know what I mean? It can be that fucking delusional and psychotic where, you talk to her a certain way or you do a certain thing, you're doing nothing wrong. Maybe doing nothing different, but she'll perceive that as this, perceive that as that. Tell her friends, tell people he was just disrespectful or he didn't care or he wasn't even concerned about me because he did, and blowing it out of proportion. Why is she doing that? She's giving herself victim equity. Okay. So she has a bank account of being a victimness. All right. She's building equity in her victim bank account so that she can now do shit to you and blame it on you. All right. And that is something that you need to recognize that's universal. Women tend to do that when they're unaware and not having the wisdom to overcome that tendency. And look for those patterns and don't accept them. Okay. Or take them seriously or put up with them. Simple recognition is enough usually to get you out of taking any of that stuff seriously, right? When you're not aware, that's when you don't recognize that she is building a bank account of victim equity to use against you later. You know, doesn't mean be paranoid about it, but it means if that starts to happen or you start to notice that, you set a boundary. It's simple. Your boundaries keep you out of your trouble, right? You say, listen, we don't fucking act like that. You know, I'm not looking at everything you do in a negative way to try to justify my behavior. And if you're going to do that, then we're just on different pages. You know what I mean? You don't accept that kind of behavior. All right. It will be a default, especially if the relationship is going south or breaking up. And so that's my final say in the matter for this show. I'll leave you with we'll leave you with some final questions. What do we got, Glenn? Anything?
So, a few questions. Paul, do you think hot dogging can strengthen a relationship?
What the fuck is that?
I have no idea. I thought it was a word that you pimps know. Guess not.
Not this
The other one is basically you have to fill her up so much that she's begging for a day of rest per week.
Kind of.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? It's great.
Leave her sore. If she's not sore, like she's working out from the gym, then you haven't done your job. All right. And the other question would be, let's see. Oh, does Paul have a problem with fat chicks? Was he makes
like do I fight him in public?
Can you make fun of him a lot?
Do I make fun of him a lot? I mean,
I think everybody makes fun of fat chicks, just like everybody makes fun of fat guys. I mean, like,
I make fun of everybody, though, you know. But
exactly.
I mean, it's like, I don't sit here and shame and not mean.
It's equal opportunity around here.
I'm not mean, and I don't like point at some fat girl and like ridicule her. Like, I don't care what people do. If she wants to be fat, I don't care. Like, you know, I have, you know, platonic things. I don't judge people at all, really, like that. But what I do judge is behavior. And when, you know, in a general sense, when women, for example, let themselves go and they're not taking care of themselves, and then they're, you know, shaming their relationship partner and trying to make, like, you know, the guy that they're with more like, you know, like trying to bring him down and cut him down, you know, by treating him like basically a certain way, treating him poorly, you know, because they're insecure about their weight and their lack of sexual market value. Or when those girls become, you know, sometimes it's when they're single, sometimes when they're actually with somebody. Like girls, like for example, like my girlfriend's like 20 years younger than me, right? I get girls that come at me calling me like, oh, and guys that pile onto it too, I'm a sexual predator somehow because my adult girlfriend makes a conscious choice to be with me and happens to be younger. Like, I'm not with somebody who's even under 21 years old here, right? And so someone in her mid 20s making a choice to be with me, that's not predation. But I'll get that. Who do I get that from? Usually overweight middle-aged women, because they don't want to recognize that their lack of sexual market value is why they're not doing well. And instead of going to the gym and working on themselves and being a better person, they would rather focus on men and how men are, you know, hooking up with 20.
You're not body positive, Paul. You're just not body positive. All right.
Yeah, right.
You're shaming them because you're not body positive. T Diamond asks, what do you do when your partner is not putting out enough, and when you talk to them about it a few times, when it even seems like they prioritize everything else before smashing you? So now we all know that T Diamond is a female. So
yeah, right. That happens a lot. There's a lot of girls who are with guys who are initiating lower sex drive. They want to get laid more and they're not. That is a real problem. Here's the thing though. This is because you girls do shit the wrong way in your relationships too. Sometimes. I mean, guys do it too. This is why I'm here. But girls, you all do it. Because what'll happen is usually you will get in a relationship with somebody and that guy's sex drive and pace doesn't match yours very well. And instead of you will just assume you can change that guy. And so here's how it'll go. In the beginning of a relationship, the honeymoon phase, you guys are banging a lot. All right. After the honeymoon phase phases off, the frequency of sex will tend to go into whoever's holding the frame of the relationship, free comfortability. So if a guy is comfortable with twice a week sex, for example, that's like what he's cool with. And the girl wants it, almost every day, or she wants 5 times a week. He's morally comfortable with twice a week. He holds the frame and he keeps it at twice a week. That's what he's comfortable with. He doesn't prioritize it, whatever. I mean, there's problems with, I'm sure, what he's doing, but the point is, it's like your problem as a woman is your selection. You picked a guy who was comfortable with twice a week and then hoped you could change him to wanting to bang you more. It's like, it's not about you. It's about the frequency that he's comfortable with. And so you needed to make those changes prior to a serious commitment, and bring it up and give him the opportunity for, seeing if he would be willing to change it. And if he's not willing to change it, then that needed to be, a relationship you're not in anymore. You know what I mean? Like if it's the sex isn't matching what you want, that's when you need to be not trying to just change him, but to exit. If he's not open to having a conversation with you about it and to leading it into and making a priority, then you just need to go. You're not gonna have the frame. This is what girls try to do all the time. And it sucks though. I understand it sucks. You're not gonna be with some dude and you're gonna have the frame of the relationship in order to get him to lead the relationship. No, he has to lead the relationship. And if he's not a good leader, and that includes sexually, you got to pick somebody else. That's how it's going to go. Like, I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Now, it doesn't mean you do it right away, but you just try to initiate conversations. You tell them directly, because girls try indirect. Girls try to send them signs like, no, okay, you need to communicate with him like in a way that a guy understands, which is direct communication. Hey, we need to talk about something. And I'm not satisfied with our sex life right now. And we need to have a conversation about that. And I know that may make you feel bad or insecure, but if I don't have this conversation with you, I'm going to continue to be unhappy. And it's probably going to be really bad for us. And you need to have that. And the guy needs to be able to be open to have that conversation, which I know is nearly impossible for most guys. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help, because most guys cannot have a conversation like that. You know what I mean? Like, well, what do you feel like is wrong? Or maybe it's a good sex life, but it's just not as frequent. So then you just start off with that. Listen, we need to talk about something. I want to get fucked more often. Like, we need to fuck. Like, and you have that conversation. Maybe you need to do more and put more effort in, right? But I mean, direct conversation, which is exactly what you don't want as a woman to have to do, but you need to do it. That's where, because it won't, you can't go based on assumptions. Not every guy has good game and good awareness. In fact, most guys don't. And so if he's a good guy, but his game and his awareness just sucks, you just are going to have to be blunt and have the conversation. And then you're going to, and you do it with as much compassion and stuff as possible, but you're not trying to appease his insecurities either. You're just going to have it. And if he is unwilling to fix it or is going to do avoidance behaviors and or get mad at you or do whatever, then you just have to bounce. It's just not going to work. All right. If he's not going to lead it in the direction you want, you can't lead him to lead it in the direction you want. That's the shitty part about being a girl. and it sucks. I empathize, but it's just the cold hard truth is you need to be able to tell them what your needs are as openly as possible. It needs to be an open discussion, and then he needs to be the person to take the lead. And if he can't do it, and he's not willing to try, not willing to work on it, then you're stuck. You got to bounce, or you just got to be resolved to have less sex or not have the sex you want. And that's just the way it is. So, and my suggestion would be to bounce. All right. So what else we got, Glenn?
That is it.
Cool.
So, you guys, final thoughts on you, Paul. Final thoughts. So your
final thoughts. My final thoughts are basically that be sure, be careful that your game and your behavior and your inner game and mental framework isn't making it more difficult for your chick to want to be with you. And make sure that your approach, isn't creating an identity or a mental framework where she would eventually leave you to mate switch or outright cheat on you. A lot of you guys hear advice all the time and you execute that. It's either bad advice altogether, or it's advice that would be okay, but you're executing it poorly. And then you're putting this girl in this position where she now is fighting against urges to want to leave you, to want to cheat on you, to want to do other stuff. And those things end up happening. And then you're trapped up in it and you're blaming the girl, and it's a lot of bullshit. So stop doing that. And you need to improve your inner game more than anything else. You need to understand how your behaviors have these consequences. I got links in the description for a free guide to setting boundaries and cheat proofing. I got, you can make an appointment to interview to get in my year-long program. You can buy the Alpha Mindset course if the year-long program is a little much, to work on your inner game. These things are going to help you so you make better decisions in the whole frame. So if that relationship doesn't work, it ain't going to be your fault. But the better news is that you're more likely to not only work, but to thrive and do really well. So that's it.
All right. Well, until next time, enjoy. All right. You guys learned about today how to deal with when your girl blames you for cheating, and what you need to do and what you need to realize if you have caused any part of her cheating. Until next time, peace. And we are off.